Hi guys, so I'm just going to do a quick video to show you how to do this or something similar to it. Anyhow, I've mixed up a little bit of sort of neutral colours with a bit of my green here and a little bit of my indigo and whatever bits was in my palette here, which was all sorts of messy stuff. I'm going to use just clear water to get started on the page. This is just to set my baseline so I know where I'm going to be painting. So that's my horizon line or vanishing point. So I'm going to just wet down here just with plain water so I know where I'm starting and finishing. The rest is using this neutral with a nice pointed brush. So my round, and I only want a really pale mix for this first layer. We'll come back in, and this part here, this through the middle, this is my second layer. So the whole rest of the painting is done in the first layer. So I'm just going to start in my corners. Is probably a bit too light. So when I say neutral, I mean like just a grey. It doesn't have to be, you can do any colour you like. And I'm not using really great paper here. I'm just going to dab along and start to establish my distant trees, so, or mountain lines. You could do this with hills as well. Working on a funny angle, I think. I tend to favour compositions that have this kind of shape because it gives it more of a sense of depth. So this here being closest to you, this here being the furthest away. And then just wet this all down so that it blends. Like I said, I'm using not a very good paper, so it's not going to be super great result. Pull it all down, down, just to meet up with that wet space I created earlier. These can touch in places, and then I'm just going to put a little bit more of my pigments in here. So this is going to become my foreground, so you can have more intensity of colour in here, and you can use some bright colours, allowing some of the bloom to create some shapes for you. I might even take a little bit of yellow to brighten it up a wee bit. See, it's starting to dry there, and I don't really want that. Nice and wet. Smooth it off. Fix up my brush marks. Bit more colour. Maybe some yellow. So it feels bright. Even in the middle there, it's starting to dry off a little. It's not going to matter, but it's kind of nice if it all blends together. Oh, I've got it here. They're a pain to get out. You just got to battle with them. Pick it off your brush. Carefully. So about there. I did want this to blend in a little bit, so I might just let that just in some spaces. Not all. I still want to keep some of this white because it's interesting, kind of feels like sunlight when you come to finish it. So that's the first layer, really quick and not super well executed and using really bad paper, but you get the picture. So I'll let this dry and then come in and do the second layer once it's all crispy dry. So I've given this a little while to dry. It wasn't long, it's a pretty warm day today. It's mostly dry. So now we're going to do this line here, which is our mid-row. So the distance is really pale because of atmospheric perspective. The front is bright because it's our foreground, so it's going to have the most clarity. And the middle is like somewhere in between. So I'm going to place wet paint along here, but I'm also going to be conscious of this tree line here. So what I'm creating in here is both the top of this tree line and the top of this tree line, or the base of this one. So I'm not going to paint all the way down. I'm going to keep this bit dry. Anyway, you'll see how I do that. I'm kind of just going to use the same neutral colours that I had before, which is a mix of blue and green and this dirty whatever stuff it is on my palette. Goodness only knows what colours these are. All sorts of mixture. This one here is the neutral tint. This one here. So these here are mixtures of all sorts of colours, and obviously the neutral tint's going to be amongst those as well. So I think that's nearly bright enough. It doesn't have to be super dark because it's going to be a layer, so it's going to be darker than what we've already got here. I really like, even though this is really rubbish paper, I quite like how it's created these lines while it was drying. It's actually gone ahead and done, sort of painted itself, you know. It's made another row of trees here. So here I'm going to start by putting in this row, moving fairly fast, and then I'm going to also, while I'm working on this one, I'm going to be putting in this other one. So I'm going to be picking out those shapes. To choose those shapes, I kind of go with the colours that are already there and the veining that's already happened in the paper while I was painting it. I find the organic shapes that it makes are lovely, and I don't have to overthink it too much while I'm working. Picking away at it. Coming back down to this other tree line. Thinking about the shapes that they might be and working with the shapes that the pigment has already made in the paper. So that is about it. It's pretty good. Well, it works for me. That works for me. Kind of feel like I'm talking to myself when I'm making these. I guess I am. So I'm going to also, take a little bit of this neutral tint. You could use Payne's Grey, a darker pigment that you're already using. You could paint autumn trees and do this all in red. So at this point you just want something darker. So I'm just going to put this in here along this line. And it's going to float into the spaces that are damp, so that I can create that shadow. So last week I know there was a bit of trying to understand how you get those shadows in the tree lines. So this is one of the ways that you can do it. I'm finding that this is drying a little bit and I want them to actually blend. I want it to be B1. It's drying pretty fast. So basically that's it. I think maybe some of these shapes, you know, you can tweak it heaps and change it around to suit whatever photograph you're working from or view you're looking at. Obviously, ideally, you're going to be outside painting something real instead of imaginary things like I am. You're always going to be much more successful when you've got a visual reference. Painting from your mind, you're tapping into all that bad teaching you had when we were children, sadly. I do like how this is quite rich in pigment, but I'm already drying over here. So if I come in now and try and put extra pigment in, like I've done just here, I'm going to be actually pushing pigment away and getting bloom that isn't going to work for me. Whereas this bloom down here, that works for me. I don't mind that. So from here you can carry on and make your picture into whatever you want it to be from here. I'm just going to pick up a bunch of my earthy colours from my palette and bring those in a little to do some more landscape things. Maybe something super dark in the front here. Cat here. To give it some grounding, some weight at the bottom, helps to ground your pictures a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with being minimalist and keeping things white. You can also go back in and start forming some cloud shapes too if you wish, remembering that clouds in the foreground are going to be your darkest, and in the distance they're going to be lightest and smallest. And the same with the clouds, so you can work clouds in exactly the same way. So I can keep this white here, which describes a cloud, and actually so I'm working negative, yeah, so I'm working into this space to describe the sky, and keeping this as my cloud area. All those lovely techniques that you can use, like lifting out to create some cloud shape up here. These are all the tools that you can use to bring this to something that resembles a finished landscape. You don't have to describe everything. It's about giving clues and allowing your viewer to fill in some of the information too. That keeps things interesting, keeps them involved. So there you go. Have a go. Try different colours and try different compositions too. If you want to, you could have, you know, hills coming in the front with valleys in the back. It doesn't have to come horizontally straight across your page, using lots of layers. Have fun and practice lots. See you next week.